Okay, how many of you guys play video games? Okay, how about video games such as Angry Birds or Farmville? All right. I asked that because right now those kind of games are really hot. For example, did you know that Zynga, the company that made Farmville, they went public in last December, and they went public for $7 billion. And then I checked NASDAQ for how much it's worth now, like last night, and now they're worth $9 billion. Right. These are some pretty big numbers here, and if huge profit margins are any indication for what we're interested in and what we want, then we want video games. Okay, and this is really interesting for me because I pretty much was raised by video games, and I want to be in the industry for it. So I'm familiar with it, and that is why I am talking about it with you guys today. Okay, more specifically, I'm going to talk about the history of video games, the controversy behind video games, and the video games as an art form. Okay, so how did this phenomenon come about anyways? Well, it was towards the late 60s, computer technology was getting better, and people started experimenting with finding new ways to make money off of technology. But it wasn't until 1972 when Atari published Pong. It was the first commercially successful video game, and it was made by Alan Alcorn, and they put it in a bar. This is like the first, people are kind of familiar with it, right? Like pinball machines, right? So they put it there, and like a week later, the guy that owned the bar called Alcorn to come back in because the machine malfunctioned, right? So he goes in and he finds out that the machine didn't malfunction, but it was overflowing with quarters. Like he couldn't put any more quarters inside it. And so this is just kind of foreshadowing the success that video games are going to have in the future. The development of video games, like the evolution of them, are really entwined with the evolution of technology. We have more detailed sound effects and graphics coming with more sophisticated microchips, right? CDs allowed us to store more data into compressed space, so developers are able to cram more content in the games in more detail, and developments in networking technology allow players to play like across the world, through the internet, and like, that's really something. But right now, I think what we're feeling is development in motion sensing technology, and video games took this and kind of reinterpreted it as a new way to interact with video games. So what I'm trying to say is Nintendo Wii, the waggle controller, right? That kind of technology, it opened the doors for video games. Like before, it was like this kind of hardcore, like niche group of people that just gamed all day. Like your average game was like 60 hours, right? But now you have like grandmas and grandpas bowling, living rooms and stuff like that. And so that was a real driving force for the industry. And Nintendo made a killing on the Wii. Like, they just blew Sony and Microsoft, the competitors. Like they just blew them out of the water. Like I have a statistic here from reports published by the Entertainment Software Association in 2009. They said that, according to them, approximately 70% of American households play computer or video games, right? And when you have that much of an audience, and the popularity is increasing, like the budgets for video games are like now rivaling movies, right? Which they were like the behemoths in the entertainment industry. And actually, Modern Warfare 3, it's a series, like an ongoing series. I think they're on the 8th iteration of the series of like shooting games, war games, right? This is like a screenshot of it right here. It's 2011 it came out. First 5 days, they grossed around $775 million, right? This first 5 days. And you want to compare that to like the movie industry, right? Which is like the juggernaut then. The Dark Knight has the highest grossing in 5 days, and it grossed $204 million. So, I mean, obviously they're kind of different products, but like just looking at 5 days, that's staggering. But the success of video games is not without its share of controversy. I think we all, I guess we know of Columbine, the massacre, right? A lot of the people blame the massacre, the shooting on like video games. I think one of the shooters, Eric Harris, he played this game called Doom, which was like a computer shooting game. You know, it's really violent at its time. Like you have like red pixels flying everywhere. So, so the people started challenging it, video games, and saying, do video games make the players more violent? Do they make them more aggressive? You know, people we got worried, and there has been a lot of research done on it. It's been thrown back and forth, you know, with really mixed results. But in 2009, Ferguson and Kilborn had an article in the Journal of Pediatrics, in which they conclude that media, such as movies and video games, they don't cause violence, right? They cause the participant, like the player or the watcher, to become more aggressive because you know, like any kind of sport you play, any competitive sport you play, you get more aggressive. You know, you want to be competitive, right? So that effect is where the aggression in video games is coming from. But they don't cause like serial killers to pop up out everywhere, right? And so video games as like, you know, a murder machine maker is no, it's not, sorry. But video games, as we start to understand video games and like really learn about them, you know, like they don't cause mass murderers, they don't desensitize kids to violence. It's people are really starting to see video games as an art form, and this is like really new. You know, like I mean, how do you consider like that an art form? You know, I mean, like, come on, really, so there has been a lot of people saying it is an art form, and a lot of people saying it's not an art form. I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with Roger Ebert. He's a movie critic, always giving the thumbs up, right? He is like infamous for saying that video games can never become art, right? I'm going to quote him here. He says, and the reason why is because no one in or out of the field has ever been able to cite a game worthy of comparison with the great dramatists, poets, filmmakers, novelists, and composers. You know, so pretty much he's saying that video games are not art because you can't take a video game in the past and like explain it at the same level as Tolstoy, you know, as the great writers Shakespeare. You can't compare that to them. And in a sense, he's right. You know, that is a very legitimate point. But then now proponents that say video games aren't art form, they say that the medium is so young, it's really like 40 years old. You know, that it's still going through, still evolving. It hasn't found its voice yet as an art form. And right here, I have a quote, another quote from Kelly Santiago, and she's a big voice in this indie video game kind of movement going on. And in a speech she gave at USC, she said that, she compares video games like writing, you know? She says, writing started as a way of tallying our bills and taxes, but over time, writing became a model of storytelling, a mode of storytelling. And so that's where a lot of the proponents of art, I mean, video games as art, is going for. Like, you just gotta be patient, you know. I mean, people are still understanding the medium. And actually, I am one of those people, right? I believe in what Kelly Santiago says. And I just want to like break down what video games are. Like they have everything like a movie has, right? Which is sound, imagery, like narrative. but it's not passive anymore. Like they really break out of this really linear kind of storytelling. Now the viewer is a player. He's active. He or she's active in the product. You know, they can change the ending. They can. It's no longer about movies. Is no longer a blanketed kind of movie. Games can be marketed, can be like narratives that you can change towards for yourself. You know, they're unique in that way. And I respect that. And as a person who hopes to be a part of that industry, that really gets me excited. I really want to change. I really want to prove Kelly right. You know, that it's still growing. You know, that it can be an art form. You just got to be patient. And so, as video games become more influential in our culture, you know, I mean, you're gonna have more blockbusters, more short toppers. I mean, it took 40 years to go from that to this, right? I mean, it's a huge leap, right? I can't even imagine 40 years from now, how do you take that even farther? You know what I mean? That's like realistic, you know, the sounds, it's scary, it really is, the potential that these things have. And hopefully, now that you know some of the history of video games, some of the controversy behind them, and its applications in an art form, you know, maybe you won't get thrown off by how crazy these things get. Yes.